The Verdict with World Pool.
Hello everybody, welcome to this week's edition of The Verdict. A lot of action from Ireland for you this week. We'll be at the Curragh, Garum Park, Naas. We'll also be at Kempton Park as well for one interesting performance, and we will pay homage to the Kentucky Derby winner as well. So lots to fit into the show. Without further ado, let's take you to Bank Holiday Monday, to Ireland and to the Curragh. And have a look at the winners and times. The ground was officially described as good. There was one outstanding time from Los Angeles. We'll have a look at him a little bit later on. 2:05.27 over 10 furlongs. That is a very good time. Nobody dipped under standard. Officer is the other horse we'll be having a look at in the third contest over 1 mile. What do the Race IQ Time Index tell us about all of those races? Well, you can see they're the best two times on the card. That third time getting a Race IQ index of 6.2 out of 10. Let me just remind you how we get that. We have a look at the overall time that the horse achieved, in this case Officer, and then we compare it to historical data for races run over a mile at the Curragh on good ground, and you get a score, and that score is 6.2. Look at the Los Angeles score. That's a really good one, 8.4, easily the best time of the day at the Curragh, with the meeting average 5.7. We start with Officer then. And after this performance, I think he's going to be banned for the Irish Guineas. He comes out of stall number 1. He beats Curragh Wood from 3. And Alakazi came from stall number 7. Overall, this was an evenly run contest where Officer was able to show a tremendous turn of foot in the closing stages to put this listed Tetrarch Stakes to bed. His break speed out of the stalls, not that quick really, 3.24 seconds to get to 20 miles an hour. That was 6th best in the race, but he was soon not too far off the lead, sat in 4th place up against the rail. And you can look at the finishing speed percentage as against par to see how this race was run. 103.17% for him, with the par at the Curragh over this trip 102.23%. So he's come home relatively strongly compared to the par, but it's not a race that's been slowly run and he dashed home to produce a very high FSP. It was strongly run for it to take energy out of all of the horses, but a nice even finish from him. But he does have a turn of foot. Ryan Moore's angling now. He was stuck against the rail. He's just angling to his left at this stage and about to send him from this point, the 3 furlong point. And there he is with this runner-up just towards the inside, Curragh Wood, looking for a run. That horse had raced in 3rd or 4th throughout. Now he quickens, furlong 6, 11.27. Now Curragh Wood was a bit quicker at 11.22, but what makes Officer better is that he can sustain his speed. And 11.24 rated as very fast as against the Race IQ par sectionals. So he's fired 2 really quick furlongs to put this race to bed. And I think he idles a bit in the closing stages. 12.82 was his final furlong, rated as slow as against par. He's just coming back underneath his jockey in the closing stages. I think there was perhaps more to come. But what marks this out as being good was it was an evenly run race, and he had more energy to quicken than anything else through the 6th and the 7th furlong. 2 really fast furlongs, which gave him a final 2 furlong split of 24.06. Now that's much better than the 24.45 that the runner-up did and the 24.35 that the third did. And given that he's idling a little bit thereafter and not given too hard a time, well, you'd have to conclude that that's a really impressive performance. Sustained speed, as you can see there from the 2 green segments, furlong 6 and furlong 7, they tell us that he was fast against par in furlong 6 and very fast against par in furlong 7. If you go further back in those lines, you can see that the race was run quite evenly. It steadied a bit through furlongs 4 and 5, but generally run evenly with a quick finish from Officer. He's able to sustain his speed at that 7th furlong, the fastest in the race by some way. And that sealed the deal for him. And you'd think now that the Irish 2000 Guineas is very much on the agenda for this lightly raced individual for the Aidan O'Brien team, who are really rolling now. Officer for the Guineas. So the time that Officer posted was the second best on the Curragh card last Monday. The best was posted by Los Angeles, who got a racing index of 8.4, easily the best time of the day. A really good horse. We all know how good he is. Irish Derby winner last year, third in the Arc as well. Let's have a look at what he achieved. He was from stall number 4 in this Mooresbridge Stakes. White Birch was second from 6, and Trust Your Instinct was in third spot from 5. Quite a good race, really, this, overall, for a Group 2. We all know how good White Birch is, and Trust Your Instinct, for that matter, as well. Horses fired a big speed figure in the past. And this was a strongly run race, just what the doctor ordered for Los Angeles, who stays really well. Third quickest out of the stalls there, 2.94 seconds it took him, and he was able to sit quite handy. Gallen took them along in strong early splits. 3 of the first 4 furlongs set by Gallen rated as being fast as against par. 11.92, a 12.06 and a 12.52 for the second, third and fourth furlongs are rated as being quick. Remember, here they're running uphill as well, doing those quickish sectionals. So the gallop really was honest and strong in the early part before they steadied it a little bit as they swung downhill and then into the home straight. About now they start to steady it to 2 even furlongs. But overall, this is strongly run in the early part of the race. Gallen bowling along. Yes, he got his own way out in front, but he's going pretty hard. Now, at the Curragh, you tend to get quite strong finishes because jockeys over this trip are just wary of saving energy. And that's what you got here. FSP of 104.91, 4.91 seconds faster in the final couple of furlongs than the rest of the race. And look at that. He's quickening now, Los Angeles, in second with a fast furlong through the 7th. And then he goes a fast furlong through the 8th. So they've quickened quite a long way out. They've quickened 4 out off a strong gallop. And this has really maintained the speed that they set early on. There's been no messing about here. There's been no taking a dab on the brakes and filling these horses up for a strong finish. They've kicked 4 out. White Birch throws down a big challenge now. He's quicker through the 3rd last furlong than Los Angeles to get himself into contention. And then they're both slow through the final furlong. Trust Your Instinct running on well in the closing stages to post the fastest final furlong. He's worth a try at 1.5 miles. So let's summarise this. Strong early gallop. They didn't slow down to fill up, and then they kicked a long way from home, resulting in quite a slow final couple of furlongs. But he gutsed it out, Los Angeles, 35.82, his final 3 furlongs. The runner-up was slightly quicker at 35.62, but Los Angeles, who can idle in front, has found just enough to hang on from White Birch, who could surely do with more cutting the ground. Remember, the ground was rated as good. Now, that top line is Los Angeles. A slow first furlong, and then what I said, fast, fast, fast through the next 3 furlongs. Then it's just par for the next 2. There's no let-up. They don't dab on the brakes, get a breath, fill them up, and then go again. They keep the pressure on. They keep the foot to the floor, the foot to the accelerator, and then they go 11.65, 11.31, kicking a long way from home. And then look at the sea of blue in those last 2 furlongs. They're all getting tired late on. But Los Angeles able to win a strongly run race on his seasonal reappearance. That's well, it bodes well, doesn't it, for the rest of the season with him. They might stick at 10 furlongs for the time being before perhaps 1.5 miles in the autumn. But Los Angeles, well, he's still all there, this fella. From the Curragh, let's go to Kempton on Wednesday evening. And we had a real rarity here, a strongly run 1.5 mile race. You don't often see that on the all-weather at Kempton. Here are all of the winners. It was just an OK card. The time suggested that it was more standard than standard to slow, and Jane Temple is the one that I'm quite interested in, who completed 1.5 miles in 2:33.94, just over 2 seconds above the Racing Post standard. How does that stack up as far as the Race IQ Time Index is concerned? You're looking at the second column here. Not bad at all, 7.3. That's pretty good for a 1.5 mile race at Kempton. They tend to crawl and sprint. That wasn't necessarily the case here, and it was better than the meeting average of 6.1. So let's have a look at Jane Temple and see exactly what she achieved. She's trained by the Gosdens. Benoit de la Sayette on board from stall 1. She beat Lalique, who once further stays well, and Star of Light, who needs a brain transplant, really, to win a race. Didn't really fancy it at all, but it didn't really matter. Now, the salient point about this, before we get into the data, is that the winner's a 4-year-old beating 2 3-year-olds. The winner gave them £19. That takes some doing. £19 to 3-year-olds who might be improving and might be on the up, and she's given them a good beating in doing so. She sits there in third. Stable companion Star of Light is in second spot, with Wondrous Light, the grey, taking them along. Jane was out of the stalls reasonably well, not very fast, but not over a mile and a half. It doesn't really matter. 3.10 seconds to 20 miles an hour, 7th fastest in the race, so one of the slowest, really. And as far as this way this race was run, they went steady in the early part of it. So when they came up the home straight for the first time, they're all having a bit of a look around and going quite steady. I'll give you some of the early splits. 13.09, 12.53, a 13.14. The third furlong as they sort of steadied and jostled for position, a 12.99 and a 13.25. So the first 5 furlongs was quite moderately run, sort of run like you would expect a Kenton mile-and-a-half race to be run. But they then stepped on the gas quite a long way out through the 6th, 7th, 8th and 9th furlong. They really got rolling, and you'll be able to visually notice that when Lalique in the sheepskin noseband comes off the bridle. She's quite slow. I think she wants further. She'll win races at 2 miles. Look here, she's just being niggled towards the outside there in the purple cap, purple sleeves, sheepskin noseband, just not going that well. There, look, just off the bridle and pushed along as the pace begins to increase, courtesy of Wondrous Light. And the 7th, 8th and 9th furlongs, they were pretty quick. They quickened up quite a long way from home, 12.64, 12.47, 12.53 for the winner. So they really have picked up a long way out. And then she's come home in even fractions thereafter to record an FSP of 106.24%, better than the par of 105.91. There's the 10th furlong, where she was able to run 12.17. And then she's even better in the next furlong, 11.75. So she's quickened up there, as you can see, down on the inside, really stretching. She still looks green all over the place, really. But Benoit de la Salle just keeps her up to her work in the closing stages, and she runs out a ready enough winner. Final 3 furlongs of 36.24, runner-up 36.48, the third 36.9. So she has quickened in the closing stages with that 11.75 penultimate furlong. And overall, this is a race that steadily run for 6, and then they picked it up a long way out. But she was able to quicken better than her rivals. I'm afraid Star of Light didn't look too keen, running around in the middle there with the red cap and head in the air as well, and could only finish third. So I'm not quite sure what the Gosdens will do with her. This tells a tale, really. You can see the number in brackets is where Jane Temple sat in the race, so third throughout. Look at those early splits. They're not very fast, are they? 12.53, 96, 13.03. But then it started to pick up when they got to the 7th furlong, gone 12.85 to a 12.64, quicker even more, 12.47, 12.53, and then quickened in the home straight, 12.17, and that 11.75 was the furlong that sealed the deal and took her to the front. There was only one other horse who did a sub-12-second furlong at that point, and she's won very nicely. And don't forget, giving all of that weight away to the 3-year-olds, she's won pretty comfortably, and she's ready for Pattern Company now. OK, let's go back to Ireland. We'll go to Gowran Park last week and have a look at a couple of races from here, and one outstanding time performance from Goody Two Shoes. That's to come later. Look at that, 3.44 under the Racing Post standard. Wow. But we're going to start off by looking at a race later on the card, won by Darzina. Now, this is not a good overall time, 3.72 above the Racing Post standard. But it's worth having a close look at to see how that time was achieved. You can see at Darzina, the time index, courtesy of Race IQ, was not particularly good. 5.8 for race number 5 over 9 furlongs with a meeting average of 7. Goody Two Shoes there, look at that, 10. What a score that is, over 1.75 miles. We'll get to her in a bit. But let's start with Darzina. Now, overall times are a good way of analysing a race, but you need to know how those times are produced to understand a race. And that is definitely the case here. There's Darzina out the back. Swalu, the favourite, finished second. And the horse in front, Joyful Princess, was back in third spot in the end. She got the run of the race, Joyful Princess, through steady early fractions. A 13.08 for the second furlong, a 13.12, 14.37, 13.7, and a 12.05. 6 furlong crawl, followed by a 3 furlong sprint, which is won by a filly on debut in tremendous fashion. So even though the overall time's not particularly good, what she did achieve was something really, really quite spectacular in terms of the sectionals. She was really fast through the final 3 furlongs. 33.62 she completed them in, so rudimentary maths will say that's roughly even 11s through the final 3 furlongs, and one of those furlongs she dipped under 11 seconds, which is uphill. And for a debutant, that's really good. Her finishing speed percentage is very high, 115.71. The par's 106.76. Why is that? It's because they've crawled and she's saved energy for this really fast finish. Par finish up the hill at Gowran would normally be 106 there or thereabouts. She's way above par because she's able to save energy to sprint, but also she's really talented. That mustn't be forgotten. This is her debut. She's entitled to be green, entitled not to know a lot, entitled not to be able to run down a horse in Joyful Princess, who got an easy lead and who herself produced an FSP of 113.05. She wasn't stopping Joyful Princess, but she's run down by the filly on the outside in the green Aga Khan colours. Just look at the runner-up quickly, Swaloo. A little bit of trouble in running. She's a big filly. She was favourite here. She didn't really handle the undulations, really, and she just struggled for a run at one point. But here goes the winner. The third last furlong, 11.2, a 10.71 then. Only furlong in the race under 11 seconds for any horse, 10.71, then an 11.72. A sustained burst of speed from Darzina to win this. Yes, she got a clear run, but I don't think Swaloo would have beaten her even if she had got a clear run herself under Dylan Brown McMonigal. Swaloo ought to go in your notebooks, your racing TV tracker, wherever you keep a note of horses, for a similar sort of race in the future, perhaps on a more level track. She's run perfectly well. But Darzina, what a turn of foot this is. Up the hill for a debutant for the Dermot Weld team. She's in the Irish Oaks, and it might just be that they step her straight up to Patton Company after this. And she reached a top speed, look, of 41.96 miles an hour, much quicker than the rest of her rivals, although Swaloo was relatively quick at 41.25 and is a shoo-in for a similar maiden in the near future. Do keep an eye out for her. And there's that fastest furlong. Look at that. 10.71 seconds when she quickened through the penultimate furlong. She is bred to stay 1.5 miles all day long, and if she does, with this sort of speed, she's going to be very good indeed. Now I'm going to have a look at the most remarkable performance at Gowran Park, certainly as far as the final time was concerned. It was done by Goody Two Shoes, who took what was the vintage Tipple Stakes, which has been run since 2018 at Gowran, and 2 minutes 56.56 was 7.58 seconds under the Race IQ par for a time index score of 10. The maximum that you can get. So the final time is absolutely sensational from Goody Two Shoes. Let's have a look and see how it was achieved and discuss whether we think it's believable, really. Stall 4 for Goody Two Shoes, Fairy Wings from 1. Dupe made the running from stall 6 and set a very strong gallop out in front. I did some investigating about previous vintage Tipples. They've been run, as I said, since 2018. This is 5.5 seconds faster than the fastest renewal of this race that we've seen thus far. So that's a good guide to how good the overall time is. Plus, there was a race run at Gowran over this 1.75 miles in April, which was won in a time nearly 19 seconds slower than this, on slightly slower ground. This is 19 seconds quicker. It's a fantastic performance from Goody Two Shoes. She's been chasing, she's been hurdling. She's only run 8 times on the flat, and now she's won 4 of them. She was out of the stalls in 2.99 seconds, 6th fastest, but she whooshed home in 34.67 seconds for a finishing speed percentage of 109.14. So she's 9.14% quicker in the last 3 furlongs than the rest of the race. To run down the leader, the Jupe, who stole a bit of a march on them, quickened down the hill, was away and gone. But Goody Two Shoes, off what was a really decent gallop, is able to quicken. She goes 11.29, then that 11.02 you see there through the furlong 12. 11.02 from 1 3/4 horse, and then even more speed. She backs it up with 11.24. Okay, yes, she's going to get tired up the hill in the final furlong for a 12.41. But that turn of speed has surged her to the front, got past the pace setter who'd stolen 5 or 6 lengths. Fairy Wings runs on and picks up pieces in 3rd place, and she's geared down a little bit in the closing stages by Dylan Brown McMonigal. This is a stayer showing a rare turn of foot. 11.29, 11.02, 11.24, 3 sub-12s for a stayer to go and run down a horse who's got loose on the lead. That is very, very impressive. And whilst we have to be little bit careful about the overall time, because we don't have many 1 3/4 races at Garin, there is no doubt this is the best ever renewal of the vintage tipple. 5.5 seconds quicker than any other horse that's won this particular race, and about 19 seconds quicker than a race over this trip back in April. Wow, she has got some real potential for the flat, and given that she's going to be a broodmare, you'd think they won't risk her over hurdles or fences again. This is a sectional graph that Race IQ produces. You've got the race sector, so you've got the start right through to the mile 6 furlong finish. When the line goes down, Goody Two Shoes is quickening. Line goes up, slowing down. You can see the numbers on the left-hand segment there, the sectional times, 14.5 at the top, right down to 10. You can see where she quickened, look, at the 9 furlong point, where that line goes steeply down, and she quickens, and then she starts to get a little bit tired up the hill in the final couple of furlongs as that line goes back up. But that's a sharp dip of that line when Dylan Brown McMonigal said go, and boy did she go. 11.29, 11.02, 11.24. The big question is, what next? Where next? What will they do? Surely they won't go chasing or hurdling again with her, and possibly the Ebor might be the race they've got in mind for Goody Two Shoes. And bear in mind, this was her first run on the flat at this trip. The Ebor could be just the spot for her. Saturday at Naas, we saw the debut of Albert Einstein, who's now favourite for the Coventry, around about the 5-2 mark. And we're going to analyse that race in a moment, but let's look at it in the context of everything else that happened on the day. The ground was quick. It was good to firm in places officially. He posted an OK time for a debutant, 1:12.05. As against 109.2, so he's 2.85 outside standards. It's not necessarily the best time of the day, but it's okay. And those times overall suggested just the ground was probably as described. Now, his time index was 6.6 and the meeting average of 6.2. It's an okay time. It's not a wow time that would tell you that he's going to be a Coventry winner. It's just okay for him on debut. But that's courtesy of how the race was run, which we'll have a look at now. He came out of stall number 5 and he beat Evening Blues, who had the benefit of experience, and Dialing for Dollars from stall 4. Now, the first two pulled 12 lengths clear of the third here. That gives you a clue that the form might be pretty good, even if the overall time is not sensational. Why is that overall time not better if they go 12 lengths clear of the rest? Well, it's because of that steady early gallop, as you can see there. They're not going mad in the early part of the race. He broke okay, 4th fastest, 3.04 seconds to get to 20 miles an hour. We could perhaps sharpen that up just a little bit. It's the way he finished this race that impresses. 106.63% is how he finished, so he's 6.63% quicker in the last 2 furlongs he was in the rest of the race. First, second and third furlongs, the pace set by Evening Blues were not that quick really. 14.4, 11.75, 11.49, rated as slow against par, but the final 3 are pretty good. They went par for furlong 4, 11.04 Evening Blues went, trying to burn off Albert Einstein, but then he went 11.08 and said, OK, you've done an 11.04, but I'm now coming for you with an 11.08, and I'll tell you what, I can run 11.7 in the final furlong, and you can't do better than 12.3. And that's exactly what he did. He was fast and very fast against par in the final 2 furlongs. This was a brazen display of speed on debut in a race that was a race of 2 halves, 3 steadyish furlongs. It turned into a sprint. Evening Blues got first run against the rail, fired the quickest third last furlong, was really quick with 11.18, but then was run down by this fella who rattled home, quickened up really well. Look at the size of this son of Wootton Bassett. He's a big, imposing individual. Aidan O'Brien walked out with him out onto the course before he cantered down to the start. It suggests that he's a horse that they think an awful lot of, and Aidan really likes him. He was available about 5-1 straight after this. That didn't last long, and he's now 5-2 for the Coventry. So he's going to have to face a stronger gallop in a race like the Coventry than he got here, because you can see as against par, it's pretty slow early. First 3 furlongs, they were rated as being slow or very slow. And then you can see the green where they really quickened up the front 2. And look at that, 11.08 and 11.7. Sustained speed from the winner to produce 22.78 final couple of furlongs. And he's beaten the FSP comfortably there, saving energy early on for that fast finish. I think he could go faster early in the race if he had to, and that's perhaps what they'll do with him next time up, and perhaps one more run before he goes to the Coventry. But he's a colt of huge potential who's got a tremendous turn of foot, as we can see there, furlong 5 and furlong 6. So that's it for the verdict this week. I hope you enjoyed looking back on some really good action from Ireland. I think we've identified a good few decent future winners. I hope you've got your notebooks handy, and I'll see you again next week.
The verdict with World Pool.